Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye Nashtaprayeshu Vadreshu Nityam Bhaktavaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 43rd. Krishna kills the elephant, Kovalya Pida. Text number 16 onwards. So Krishna had killed Kovalya Pida and both the brothers, then they entered the wrestling arena. Vritau Gopak Katipayar Baladeva Janardano Rangam Vishatu Rajan Gajdantavarayudho. My dear King, Lord Baldev and Lord Janardhan, each carrying one of the elephant's tusks as his chosen weapon, entered the arena with several cowherd boys. Mallanam Shanirnadam Narvarastrinam Smaram Murtiman Gopanam Swajano Asatam Kshitibujam Shasta Swapitro Shishu Mrityur Bhoj Pater Virada Vidusham Tattvam Param Yoginam Rishninam Paradevateti Vidito Rangam Gata Sagrajaha. The various groups of people in the arena regarded Krishna in different ways when he entered it with his elder brother. The wrestlers saw Krishna as a lightning bolt, the men of Mathura as the best of males, the women as Cupid in person, the cowherd men as a relative, the impious rulers as a chastiser, his parents as a child, the king of the Bhojas as death, the unintelligent as the Supreme Lord's universal form, the yogis as the absolute truth, and the Vrishnis as a supreme worshipable deity. Srila Sridhar Swami quotes the following verses, which explains the 10 attitudes towards Krishna described here. There are 10 different moods: fury perceived by the wrestlers, wonder by the men, conjugal attraction, the women, laughter, the cowherds, chivalry, the kings, mercy, his parents, terror, Kamsa, ghastliness, the unintelligent, peaceful neutrality, the yogis, and loving devotion, the Varishnis. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur points out that people like the wrestlers, Kansa, and the impious rulers perceived Krishna as dangerous, angry, or threatening because they failed to understand the actual position of the personality of Godhead. Actually, Krishna is everyone's friend and well-wisher, but because we rebel against him, he chastises us, and thus we may perceive him as threatening. Krishna or God is actually merciful, and when he punishes us, that's also his mercy. So when Krishna and Balram entered the arena, everybody looked at Krishna according to their own mood towards him and felt differently. The same Krishna, but everybody felt differently. So he reciprocates with whatever mood we have for him, and then he acts accordingly. Hatam Kovalya Pidam Drishtva Tavapi Durjayo Kanso Manasyapi Tadanam Bhrisham Udvijen Ripa. When Kansa saw that Kovalya Pida was dead and the two brothers were invincible, he was overwhelmed with anxiety. King. Taurejatu Rangagato Mahabhujo Vichitra Vesha Bharana Sargambaro Yatha Nata Veshadharino Manakshipanto Prabhaya Narikshata. Arrayed with different ornaments, garlands, and garments, just like a pair of excellently costumed actors, the two mighty armed lords shone splendidly in the arena. Indeed, they overpowered the minds of all onlookers with their effulgences. Niriksha Tavutam Purusho Jana Machastita Nagara Rashtraka Nripa Praharsha Vegot Kalite Kshananana Papurna Taptripta Nayanas Tadat Nanam. O king, as the citizens of the city and the people from outlying districts gazed upon those two supreme personalities from their seats in the galleries, the force of the people's happiness caused their eyes to open wide and their faces to blossom. They drank in the vision of the Lord's faces without becoming satiated. So everybody was attracted, especially those citizens of the city and people from outlying districts, because they had no animosity towards Krishna, they just loved him. पिबंत इव चक्षुर्भ्याम लेहंत इव जिह्वया जिघ्रंत इव नासभ्याम श्लिष्यंत इव बाहु ऊचु परस्परम तेव यथा दृष्टम यथा श्रुतम तद्रूप गुण माधुर्य प्रागल्भ्य स्मारित इव. The people seemed to be drinking Krishna and Balram with their eyes, licking them with their tongues, smelling them with their nostrils, and embracing them with their arms. Reminded of the Lord's beauty, character, charm, and bravery, the members of the audience began describing these features to one another according to what they had seen and heard. Naturally, those who assembled in Mathura for the wrestling festival had heard the latest news of Krishna and Balram's adventures in the city, how the lords had broken the sacrificial bow, defeated the police, and killed the elephant Kuvalyapida. And now that the people were seeing Krishna and Balram enter the arena, their greatest expectations were confirmed. Krishna is the embodiment of all beauty, fame, and opulence, and therefore those assembled in the wrestling arena became fully satisfied by glorifying what they had heard of him and were now seeing. So everybody was attracted by Krishna. Eto bhagavata sakshat dharer narayanasya hi avatirna vihanchena vasudevasya veshmani. The people said, these two boys are certainly expansions of the Supreme Lord Narayan, who have descended to this world in the home of Vasudeva. Esha kila devakyam jato nitascha gokulam kalametam vasangudo vabridhe nandaveshmani. This one, Krishna, took birth from Mother Devaki and was brought to Gokul, where he has remained concealed all this time, growing up in the house of King Nanda. Putnanena nitantam chakravatascha danavaha arjuno bhuyaka hakeshi dhenuko anye chatadvidha. He made Putna and the whirlwind demon meet with death, pulled down the twin Arjun trees and killed Shankachuda, Keshi, Dhenuk, and other demons. So this news travels fast. They didn't have WhatsApp or Facebook, but still everybody knew what Krishna and Balram did. Gava sapala etena dhavagne parimochita kali uddamita sarpa indrascha vimata vita. Saptaham eka hastena dhrito adri pravro amuna varshivata shanibhyascha paritratam cha gokulam. He saved the cows and cowherds from a forest fire and subdued the serpent Kalia. He removed Lord Indra's false pride by holding up the best of mountains with one hand for an entire week, thus protecting the inhabitants of Gokul from rain, wind, and hail. Gopya asya nityam udita hasita prekshanam mukham pashyantyo vividhan stapansa taranti sma shramam muda. The gopis overcame all kinds of distress and experienced great happiness by seeing his face, which is always cheerful with smiling glances and ever free of fatigue. Vadantenena vansho ayam yadosu bahu vishrutaha shriyam yasho mahatvam cha lapshate parirakshitaha. It is said that under his full protection, the Yadu dynasty will become extremely famous and attain wealth, glory, and power. Ayam chasya agraja shriman Rama kamalalochana pralambo nihato yena vatsako yebakadaya. This lotus-eyed elder brother of his, Lord Balram, is a proprietor of all transcendental quality, opulences. He has killed Pralamba, Vatsak, Baka, and other demons. In fact, two of the demons mentioned here were killed by Krishna, not Balram. The reason for the mistake is that as news of Krishna's exploits is spread among ordinary people, the facts become sometimes muddled. Same tendency can be observed in modern newspapers. So we know how the news travel from one place to another, and then there just changes names sometimes. Janeshvevam brvaneshu turyeshu nindatsu cha Krishna Ramo samabhashya chanuro vakyam abravit. While the people talked in this way and the musical instruments resounded, the wrestler Chanur addressed Krishna and Balram with the following words. Chanur could not tolerate that the audience was praising Krishna so highly. Therefore, he had to say something to the two brothers. Enanda suno he Ram bhavanto veera sammato niyuddha kushalo shrutva ragya huto tidrikshana. Chanur said, O son of Nanda, O Ram, you two are well respected by courageous men and are both skillful at wrestling. Having heard of your prowess, the king has called you here, wanting to see for himself. Priyam ragya prakurvartya shreyo vindanti ve praja manasa karvana vacha vipritam ato anyatha. Subjects of the king who try to please him with their thoughts, acts, and words are sure to achieve good fortune. But those who fail to do so will suffer the opposite fate. Nityam pramudita gopa vatsapala yathasfutam vaneshu malla yuddhena kridantascharayanti ga. It's well known that cowherd boys are always joyful as they tend their calves, and that the boys playfully wrestle with each other while grazing their animals in the various forests. Here Chanur explains how the two brothers came to be expert at wrestling. So basically he's saying, oh, you two brothers, you just learn wrestling in the forest, playing with each other. You don't know real wrestling. We'll show you real wrestling. Tasmad ragya priyam yuyam vayam cha karvamahe bhutani na prasidanti sarva bhutamayo nripa. Therefore, let's do what the king wants. Everyone will be pleased with us, for the king embodies all living beings. Tanni shamya bravit Krishna desha kalo chitam vachaha niyuddham atmano abhishtam manye mano abhinandyacha. Hearing this, Lord Krishna, who liked to wrestle and welcomed the challenge, replied with words appropriate to the time and place. Raja bhojpate rasya vayam chapi vanecharaha karvam priyam nityam tanna param anugriha. Lord Krishna said, all the forest dwellers, we are also subjects of the Bhoj king. We must gratify his desires, for such behavior will confer upon us the greatest benefit. So he's saying, oh, we are the forest dwellers, you're the city guys, but we'll also wrestle and give the king all the pleasure. Bala vayam tulya bala kridishyamo yathochitam bhaveni yuddham madharma sparshena malla sabhasada. We are just young boys and should play with those of equal strength. The wrestling match must go on properly so that irreligion does not taint the respectable members of the audience. So Krishna is saying, we are just two young boys. And in fact, they were 10 years and 8 months old. And Chanur, Moshtek, Shal, Toshal, they were huge, big wrestlers. So Krishna said, but we should match up with the equals. Chanur uvacha, na balo na kishorastam balascha balinambara lila yebho hato yena sasra vipat sattva. Chanur said, you aren't really a child or even a young man, and neither is Balram, the strongest the strong. After all, you playfully killed an elephant who had the strength of 1,000 other elephants. So you're not child, you're not young boys. Tasmad bhavad bhayam balibhir yodhavyam nanayotra vai mai vikram varshaneya balena sah mushtika. Therefore, you too should fight powerful wrestlers. There's certainly nothing unfair about that. O descendant of Vrishni, can show your prowess against me, and Balram can fight with Mushtik. So thus ends the purpose to 10th canto, 43rd chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Krishna Kills the Elephant, Kavalya Pida. Text 44, chapter 44, the killing of Kansa. Shri Shukuvacha. Evam charchit sankalpo Bhagavan Madhusudana asasadat chanuram mushtikam rohini sutaha. Shukdev Goswami said, thus addressed Lord Krishna made up his mind to accept the challenge. He paired off with Chanur and Lord Balram with Mushtik. Hastabhyam hastayor badva padbhyame vachapadayo vichakarshantur anyam prasaya vijigishya. Seizing each other's hands and locking legs with each other, the opponents struggled powerfully, eager for victory. Aratnibhyam janubhyam chev januni shira shirshnod sorastal anyam vijagnatu. They each struck fists against fists, knees against knees, head against head, and chest against chest. The word aratni in this verse may indicate the elbow as well as the fist. Thus, blows were perhaps also struck with the elbow, a technique seen today in various martial arts. Paribhramana vikshepa parirambhava patane utsarpanam pasarpanesh chanyo anyam pratirundatam. Each fighter contended with his opponent by dragging him about in circles, shoving and crushing him, throwing him down and running before and behind him. Srila Siddha Swami explains that the word parirambha indicates crushing one's opponent with one's arms. Utthapaner yanesha chalana sthapaner api parasparam jigishan tava apachakra turatmanaham. Forcefully lifting and carrying each other, pushing each other away and holding each other down, the fighters hurt even their own bodies in the great eagerness for victory. Srila Jiva Goswami explains that although Krishna and Balram did not, of course, harm themselves, it appeared that way to Chanur, Mushtik, and others of mundane vision. In other words, the lords are fully absorbed in the pastime of being wrestlers. Tadvala balvadyudham sameta sarva yoshita uchu parasparam rajan sanu kampa varuthasha. My dear king, all the women present considered the match an unfair fight between the strong and the weak, felt extreme anxiety due to compassion. They assembled in groups around the arena and spoke to one another as follows. So all the women, they were getting agitated. How come these two little boys are fighting with these strong wrestlers? Mahanayam bata dharma esham raja sabhasata ye bala balvatyudham ragyo anvichanti pashyatah. The women said, alas, what a great irreligious act the members of this royal assembly are committing. As a king watches this fight between the strong and the weak, they also want to see it. The idea that the ladies are expressing is that even if the king somehow wanted to see such an unfair match, why should the respectable members of the assembly also desire to see it? These feelings are natural. Even nowadays, if in a public place we find a violent fight going on between a very strong, large person and a weaker, smaller person, we are aroused to indignation. Compassionate women are especially offended and enraged by such unfair violence. Quo vrajra sar sarvango, mallo shailendra sannigho, kachatit sukumarango, kishoro napta yovano. What comparison can there be between these two professional wrestlers with limbs as strong as lightning bolts and bodies resembling mighty mountains, and these two young, immature boys with exceedingly tender limbs? So they were saying, Krishna Balram, oh, they are very tender young boys. Of course, they are tender limb with tender bodies for the devotees who think that way. Dharma vyatikramo ahyasya samajasya dhruvam bhavet yatra dharma samaktishtena nastheyam tatra karhichit. Religious principles have certainly been violated in this assembly. One should not remain for even a moment in a place where irreligion is flourishing. Na sabham pravishet pragya sabhya doshan anusmaran abruvan vibruvan nagyo narah kilbisham ashnute. A wise person should not enter an assembly if he knows the participants there are committing acts of impropriety. And if having entered such an assembly he fails to speak the truth, speaks falsely or pleads ignorance, he will certainly incur sin. Valgata shatrum abhitah krishnasya vadanambujam vikshatam shrama vayuruptam varyuptam padma kosham ivambubhi. Just see the lotus face of Krishna as he darts around his foe. That face, covered with drops of perspiration brought on by the strenuous fight, resembles a lotus bud covered with dew. So that's how Krishna looked to them. But of course, Chanur and Mushtik must be getting all the blows. Kimna pashyat ramasya mukha mata mralochanam mushtikam prati samarsham hasa sarab shobitam. Don't you see the face of Lord Balram with its eyes copper red from his anger towards Mushtik, and his beauty enhanced by his laughter and his absorption in the fight? So after a long time, these two brothers found some real good opponents to fight against. Punya Bhatta Braj Bhuvo Yadayam Nrilinga Gula Purana Purusho Vanchitra Malya Gahapalayam Sahbala Kvanayascha Venum Vikridyan Chati Giritram Architangri. How pious are the tracts of land in Vraj, for there the primeval personality of Godhead, disguising himself with human traits, wanders about, enacting his many pastimes, adorned with wonderfully variegated forest garlands. He whose feet are worshipped by Lord Shiva and Goddess Rama vibrates his flute as he tends the cows in the company of Balaram. In this verse, the devoted ladies in the audience point out the difference between Mathura and Vrindavan. They want to indicate that in Vrindavan, Krishna simply enjoys with his girlfriends and boyfriends, whereas here in Mathura, the Lord is subjected to harassment by the bullying tactics of professional wrestlers. Thus, the ladies are condemning the city of Mathura because of their pain at seeing Krishna in what they consider an unfair wrestling match. Of course, Mathura is also one of Lord's eternal abodes, but here the women in assembly express their love in a critical mode. And that too, the first day, these two boys, or second day, first day they came, they broke the sacrificial bow and killed the washerman, and second day they have to fight with these wrestlers and elephants. See, in Vrindavan, they were just enjoying the life. Gopyastapah kim charan yad mushya rupam lavanya saram asamordhavam ananya siddham rigbhi pibanti anusavabhinavam durapam ekant dham yashasa shriya eshwarasya. What austerities must the gopis have performed? With their eyes, they always drink the nectar of Lord Krishna's form, which is a sense of loveliness and is not to be equal to surpassed. That form is only abode of beauty, fame, and opulence. It is self-perfect, ever fresh, and extremely rare. The word meaning and translation for this verse are from Prabhupada's translation in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Ya dohne abhanane matnotalepa prengke kham nar bharudito kshanam arjanado gayanti chaina manurakta dhiyo ashruk kanthayo dhanya vrajastri aurukram chittayanaha. The ladies of Vraj are the most fortunate of women because, with their minds fully attached to Krishna and their throats always choked up with tears, they constantly sing about him while milking the cows, winnowing grain, churning butter, gathering cow dung for fuel, riding on swings, taking care of the crying babies, sprinkling the ground with water, cleaning their houses, and so on. By their exalted Krishna consciousness, they automatically acquire all desirable things. Pratar vrajad vrajat avishtascha sayam gobhi samam kvanyato asya nishamya ven nirgamya turnam abala pathi bhuri punya pashyanti sasmita mukham sadhyavalokam. When the gopis hear Krishna playing his flute as he leaves Vraja in the morning with his cows or returns with them at sunset, the young girls quickly come out of their houses to see him. They must have performed many pious activities to be able to see him as he walks on the road, his smiling face mercifully glancing upon them. Evam prabhashamanasu srishu yogeshwaro hari shatrum hantum manaschakre bhagwan bharat rishabh. Shukdev Goswami continued, as a woman spoke thus, O hero of the Bharats, Lord Krishna, the master of all mystic power, made up his mind to kill his opponent. Well, I guess Kansa will live for another day, so I think we'll kill him tomorrow. I guess we have to stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments. What's that? Okay, so I guess you all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.